Howdy, howdy, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Between Two Wolves. We got a special... Oh, and there he is. There's the man of the hour. We got a special episode where Chip and I are just going to be vibing through Orange together. Chip, how are you doing today?
I am doing absolutely fabulously. Thank you very much. Just ready to grind this out.
Well, I'm so happy to hear that. Well, we got, just right off the bat, we got a patron question that I was going to ask you anyway. Tell us about how you got started in the CTMC and then Monumenta. What's your origin story? Because you're one of the real OGs of that.
Yeah, that's a bit of a long one. So I think it was back in like 20... I don't even know the year anymore. It's been a long time. But I remember I used to really like making survival maps in Minecraft. Like I used to see the old 404 challenges that people would do. I had a blast like playing through those kind of things, and I wanted to make some of my own. I would like make flat. I didn't have any like world editing tools. I didn't know how to use any of those, or even if they existed. So I would just like make flat.
You were doing everything in creative.
Everything in creative.
Oh,
I would use like
word.
There was one point where I found like a bunch of world painter maps that I didn't make myself. I would just download, and I would just like have just a flat world to work on. It was a lot of work for not really much. Honestly, if I had also on my old computers still, I could find some weird crap from what I made before. I know I had one I carved entirely out of TNT, which was that was an endeavor. But it was really fun. But in terms of getting into like CTMC and all that, I remember I was lurking on the old Minecraft forums on the CTM thread we had there.
Yeah.
And I never really talked, but I would post occasional screenshots. And one of the old guys there, Infinity 8 Miner, I don't think he ever released his map officially. I think it was mostly a beta. But he latched on to me. He got me to talk more in CTMC. Invited me to an old Skype chat we used to have, which was like a little precursor to the Discord. And I ended up making my own maps from there. And just, I guess after years and years of doing it, here I am.
That's so cool. So when you say like CTM forum posts, like was that just Vex, or was this before?
Oh, so Vex was definitely there. I guess I sort of skipped over the whole super hostile arc. Like after making all those things, those survival maps, I ended up going on a YouTube rabbit hole and found a bunch of Vex maps. And that's when I learned what CTM actually was. I was like, that's the kind of thing I like to see. Mm-hmm. This crazy, difficult stuff that looks like it would be really fun to make other people go through. I think it was Spellbound.
Oh wait, dude, it's your... First. No, it's not your head, sorry. It's very
Wait, what?
I thought it was the lunatic cultist head.
Yo, dude, that...
We got a rare from our very
I think I had this somewhere in here.
Oh, okay.
Let's go.
Sorry, please continue.
I didn't know where I was going with that anyways. But yeah, finding Vex maps led me to the forums. Forums led me to Skype. And then I think honestly, once Discord happened, I really ramped things up. And then I released all the maps I made, and then ended up in Monumenta after a lot of those were done.
Very nice. And you're one of the, like, what, 5 starters of Monumenta? There was Rock, Kelly, you, who else?
There were a lot. I know Brown Eye was part of that group. Trying to think of who else. Man, it's been so long, I can't even remember. Like, honest, if I would see it in a list, I'd be able to tell you a lot better. But it was basically a lot of people who were just active in CTMC at the time. Like, Brown Eye, I think NB Trainer was one of those guys. He used to be pretty active. Who else? Well, of course, Fang. Fang has been around CTMC since the dawn of time. And so he was a part of this whole group by just virtue of being the oldest one. And also being a very talented map maker. I want to make sure that's clear. Yeah, I really don't know that super well off the top of my head.
Cool. That's all A-okay. So now, for those who don't know, Chip, this is Orange, and this is Chip's first dungeon in Monumenta that he made. Where in development was this made?
This was one of the I think this was so the first dungeon was magenta, right? And then we ended up I think Kala finished white soon after, and I think orange was fit somewhere in between that. This was one of the ones we finished closer to release, if I remember right.
And Willows was the other one you were heavily involved in on release, right?
Willows, on release for Monumenta, no, actually. Willows was made from fragments of an old CTMC project where we were attempting to remaster Spellbound Caves into like a more modern aesthetic style.
Cool.
And Willows was one of the areas that I ended up like starting, and I think Kala and Brown Eye both expanded on it, and then Helicio, of course, made the little interior sections you see in the Monumenta version. So basically, a lot of terrain work in these dungeons you can probably point to me in a bunch of them.
Nice.
I didn't do most of them, but a lot of them. Like, especially overworld stuff, I had a lot of involvement.
What is your favorite biome that you made in Region 1?
In Region 1, I think it would be the jungle, because spamming trees is extremely fun to me. Like, that is the most satisfying part of building, just filling everything up with leaves, because once you feel that density, it makes the area feel so much more alive, and I just like the color green. So it works out.
You're joking. In here?
Like, I know, it's a surprise. It's crazy. You wouldn't be able to guess.
This is deepest Monumenta lore. Thank you. Okay,
deepest.
We got a very serious one coming in. How severe is your caffeine addiction?
You know, I don't even know myself the extent of my caffeine addiction. I'll be honest.
Coffee or tea?
None, actually. It's almost entirely the unhealthy option of soda, because I never grew up drinking any of that. It was sort of one of the, I grew up Mormon, so a lot of that stuff was sort of very
sure.
not encouraged. Yeah.
Well, very good. What are your thoughts on the latest experimental snapshot, the Deep Dark, and how do you want to use it for Monumenta, if you can tell us?
I honestly haven't been paying attention to many of the recent updates. Like, I think I've seen the old version of the Warden, and I've seen stuff like the Skull Extenders and all that stuff, the new underground biome. A lot of it looks very cool. I don't see myself using many of the mobs unless the Warden is easy to use. Like, maybe with the new blocks they add, you'll see a lot of them in new palettes for dungeons, but I honestly don't see myself using too many of the features as is.
Fair point. Are you going to play... How often do you play vanilla? Just to see what's...
I used to do it a lot. That used to be one of my favorite things to do in between, like, working on stuff for my own solo maps. And I guess I sort of stopped doing that after around... I think it was 1.13 with the Ocean update, where I stopped doing that stuff. Or like that's when I started getting super wrapped up in Monumenta, like dev completely, and just decided to commit on that and other things.
Perfectly fair. What is the piece of content that you developed personally or helped with that you dislike the most?
Okay, that is a good question. I like a lot of the content I make.
I would hope
but
so.
Some certain things make me very frustrated. Like for Orange, I just feel like it hasn't aged well in terms of like certain things. In terms of other builds that I don't really like, I think the R2 Mesa is something I wish I could redo. Because that thing was made... I ended up reworking it a few times because I didn't like the way the default World Painter version looked. And so I tried some different layout things, and they didn't really work out the way I wanted them to. I wanted it to be sort of like an area where it was a hazardous endgame area where people would go for like highest risk, highest reward kind of thing.
Kind of
but
like
in the end,
Fortress was for a while.
Yeah, kind of like Verdant Fortress. honestly exactly like Verdant Fortress. But that it didn't really turn out like that since, as I'm sure a lot of people know, like areas like the Mountain POI set and the White Clef ended up being a lot more popular, and without lava threatening your items, it was definitely a lot better of an option.
Yeah. But
I'm so proud of like how the whole like the things I learned doing the Mesa though. I learned a lot about how to, so R2 in general was a really interesting development thing for me because I learned how to use Master Chris specifically taught me a lot of things about how to use patterns in World Edit or like different copy paste techniques to more efficiently make some cool patterns and stuff. Like one of the things I would used to do is you'd make little strips of clay and then you'd copy paste them and you'd just be able to paste that selection over any block I wanted. So I could just make like a rainbow and then paste it over any block of dirt I wanted. And you could have that just rainbow pattern take out the entire section. And as long as you copied it specifically, you could end up with these really wild patterns. Like, you look at the Mesa, you'll see what I'm talking about, how it's layered and stuff. It's not all completely even.
Yeah, okay. Is there a particular, I mean, I guess that's kind of vague. Is there a particular part of the Mesa we could look at to see what you're talking about?
I think most of the stuff next to the Hecot pit. I think.
Cool.
That part did got Goomba'd.
No! Like you
so sad.
Ah, I see.
Yep. But yeah, I think that area is probably the most noticeable remnant of that.
Sounds good. This is kind of tied to that one, but is there anything you regret regarding Monumenta? And is there something that you would change if you could start over now?
I think my biggest thing I would change is just general overscoping when planning out projects. That has been my number one downfall, I think. For example, like things like R2, we ended up trying to, like the ocean was originally much smaller than it is right now. But when we started R2 development before 1.13 came out. And when we saw those changes, we were thinking, oh wow, R2 ocean is going to be amazing. So we might as well just scale it up as hard as we can, commit, and then we'll end up having like the best underwater region we've ever seen. That almost killed a lot of motivation on the team, and if there's something I regret, it's making that expansion. And it also added quite a lot of travel time to a lot of R2 things beyond the normal continents, which I think was overall not a good decision. But we ended up with some really cool POIs out there, so it's not all terrible.
Yeah, I'd agree so. Is there anything that you haven't done yet that you've always wanted to? Without spoilers?
Yes. There are a few dungeons, like, I've expressed that I've wanted to make a Destiny-like raid in Monumenta before, and that's been something I've been working on. I'm probably going to be going more in depth eventually later on what I want to do with it. But yeah, I really love like raids where you're focusing on high mechanics, working as a team. Like especially like I've been playing a lot of Final Fantasy 14 recently, and those kind of fights have also really inspired me to try out some different things with dungeons. So I'm really excited to try stuff like that.
Nice. Now, for those of us who don't play Destiny, how is a Destiny raid different in style than like what we have in the game with a strike?
It's not terribly different. A lot of it is just using multiplayer mechanics, just having... It's hard to describe, honestly. It's basically just having little puzzles, having little boss encounters that require you to solve certain puzzling-like mechanics, stuff like that. Make it, or like a pinnacle challenge, basically, beyond just like normal dungeons. Sort of like strikes with just normal PvE dungeons and mixed in between, I would guess would be a better description for how we'd adapt it to Monumenta.
Cool.
But like, yeah.
Well, excellent. This is you're probably one of the worst people to ask this question because there's a lot of newer people that it would be more relevant to. But when you first started developing Monumenta, did you feel as though you had to be on your game all the time, as though you had to be perfect? And were you overwhelmed?
I didn't feel that as much at the beginning, but I think as the team has grown, I have definitely felt that more. I have never seen myself as a particularly talented structural builder. That's always been one of the things that I've realized I've wanted to get better at. And personally, I see a lot of people like WonderSim, Cat Productions, like Tatsu, Bricks. We have so many people that we've had on our team that I see their builds, and I'm just absolutely floored by it. Especially like Nova recently. Like I could list off the majority of our build team, and I talk about how like I wish I could build as well as they could. And so I guess it's more of a modern thing that sort of like it pushes you to do as well as they do, or just like build something fitting for what the quality that they've set for the server in general.
Well, that's very generous of you. Hopefully they see this and they know.
I hope they do, because they deserve every ounce of credit they can get, because the amount of work they put into their builds is astounding.
Amen. What piece of Monumenta content is your favorite, and what's your least favorite? And we'll do the other questions after that, the other parts of this one.
So are we talking about in general, or are we talking like individual dungeons kind of deal?
It says, what piece of content? So I think it could be anything. It could be a boss, could be a strike, could be a POI, a dungeon. Connect 4.
I think Call will always have like a special place in my heart, even though I never had much direct involvement with it. I will always love the Oasis as well. Like, even though the overworld in R2, some parts of it don't get as much love, I think. I still have a lot. I really enjoy just wandering around those areas, working with the POIs. And on top, I think in terms of like content with dungeon related, I still really love Teal. That is one of my favorite experiences we've had. Sure. Like, especially the ending. I think that's a very fun part of the dungeon as a whole.
Story-wise or the race?
The race, 100%.
Okay. Yeah.
I like the story is cool. Like, what happens in Teal has been one of the things that we've planned since the inception of Region 2, and so it's been very cool to actually see that happen.
Would that, maybe this gets a little too detailed, but would that race be something that indicates what you kind of want to make? Like, is that a kind of Destiny-ish thing, breaking up a content piece?
Yeah, it would actually be very similar to a Destiny thing that we would like to incorporate. Just like little things incorporated in like challenge encounters that you have to do in a certain way, or like use a particular strategy. Obviously not completely toned down, so you only have one option at all times, but that kind of thing is something I would love to see more in Monumenta.
Me too. I like that a lot.
100. Great. Well, let's hope we can do it.
Let's go for it. What has surprised you most about making Monumenta, either in terms of the game itself or even kind of meta things, like how we all work together, or has our success surprised you? Did you think when you started this that 5 years later we'd be where we were?
I had no idea that we'd be this far along. Like, I remember being on on the day we released into the beta and seeing so many people log on. I was absolutely floored with how many people, I remember, one of the things that, prompted us to start Monumenta a while ago was when we were playing SHO and all that. And we would see all the people working together, playing, enjoying, having fun, doing dungeons and stuff. And seeing that happen on something that we made was, honestly so crazy. I loved it. And I'm still amazed that we've been able to keep the player base that we have had today. And it's because of, obviously it's because of all the work and content that we've pumped into the game over the years. But I just love seeing a lot of the same people around, a lot of new people coming through. It's very cool.
I'm with you there. What's your fondest memory playing Monumenta?
Fondest memory playing Monumenta? I honestly can't think of many. Like a lot of the stuff I can remember would be like in the past and is really vague. I like seeing. So I never participated in some of the stuff like the Uganda raids, but I thought those were pretty hilarious. In terms, I think just in terms, Teal would be part of that. Like I really enjoyed Teal, and even though it wasn't really a community memory, I just think it's one of those that still sticks with me.
Sure. Makes a lot of sense. What has been one of your fondest memories developing?
I think just finishing up R2 was one of my favorite things, because that was an extremely satisfying thing to finish after it went through a bit of a interesting period for a while.
Was there
in development?
Was there a particular milestone, like when a certain thing got done that you felt, oh yeah, now we're there?
I think for me, like it was part of the finishing the Oasis and stuff like that. When the biomes started to come together, like that's when things sort of clicked with me. Like that was still very far off from release, but that's when I started feeling pretty confident with things. Even though we had like a whole road ahead of us with like setting up POIs, all that jazz.
Yeah. But that was, not really your job in this case. You're pretty much a pure builder. Is that fair to call you that?
Yeah, basically pure builder. I don't really do much mob design, item design, plugin stuff that much.
Makes sense. What would you change if you could about Monumenta, regardless of anyone else's input on the matter? If you were Dictator Chip, what would be your first
Dictator Chip? I would think the thing I would want to change is just how we design like randomness and loot. I think that the way we've set up static rolls right now is fine. Like I think it's worked well for the game we've created at this point. But I've always been very sentimental for like the kind of things like Borderlands or Destiny, where you can get like ultimately the same item, but you can have different roles that cause you to play with the item differently, or just take on situations in different ways depending on how you set things up. I always liked those kind of items, and I would have liked to see us do more things like that.
So like modifiers?
Yeah, modifiers, basically. Oh,
That's pretty cool. Yeah, get like an epic King's King's Warden's already epic. Yeah. Epic telememorial or something.
Yeah, or just like telememorial where like killing a thing just causes it, like comes with a perk that causes enemies to explode or the enemy you kill to explode and deal damage to like minor damage to enemies around it to make it more crowd control or something along with
Quake.
Basically, okay, yeah, like Quake.
Just in case you didn't know.
I haven't gotten an item with Quake. I'll be honest. I'm a poor man, or I just haven't. I reset my character on R2, and I only made it to around Teal on my first character because I just really only bothered developing for a hot minute. I've only recently gotten back into like grinding out the actual game.
Sure.
But yeah, just more really minor things I would like to see.
Very nice. Do you have a favorite item in the game?
Favorite item? For a while, it was actually Tealum. I did like Staff of Memories for obvious reasons, because that was the item inspired by me. So like a little sense of vanity incentivized me to use it all the time.
If they're willing to go back to older versions too, if you were to recommend one thing that you've made to a player, what would it be? Like
Monumenta wise, or just like
anything?
General?
Could be one of your Cimmerian memories. Is that how you say it?
Cimmerian memories, yeah. Honestly, I think most of the stuff that I would recommend now is just sort of what I'm making at the moment.
Cool.
Like I think stuff like some of the biome I've worked on in R3 is something to recommend, but like that's obviously not useful information to people listening because it's not out yet. But
well, I mean, it's kind of telling that you don't think your best days are behind you.
I don't think my best days are behind me. I think throughout my time, I've only learned and just gotten better at things as I've gone on, and that's only going to continue. I hope, at least.
Well, very good.
Yeah, I'm optimistic about it.
I'm glad to hear. Me too. I'm excited about the things you're making.
Same, dude.
What is your favorite video game outside of Minecraft?
So I think in terms of like single player games, the newest God of War was one of my all-time favorite experiences in the game. Like, I love the combat, the story was amazing. That kind of thing really sells me on a game. In terms of just like gaming in general, though, I think right now Destiny is my #1 game of all time because, if not only because of the sheer amount of time I've pumped into it, I just love every part.
I assume.
Destiny 2, yes. I never played much of Destiny 1. I don't think I actually touched Destiny 1. I tried playing it a little bit on the side because people mentioned it being good, but at this point in its lifespan, not many people are playing it. Most people are playing the sequel, right? Because that's mostly how it goes. I think, but those two are basically my standouts in terms of like games I've loved. Indie games, I've really liked Hollow Knight. I am very excited for Silksong, and of course, like, I'm pretty sure most Monumenta devs have some influence from Dark Souls because it's Dark Souls, and we are the Dark Souls of Minecraft after all.
Which is your favorite Dark Souls?
I played 3, and that is still stood up to be my favorite. But like, I know it's not a Dark Souls title, but I really enjoyed Sekiro as well.
Yeah, I mean,
I really like the combat there.
Nice.
Yeah, they have the same spirit. It's deep in there, they're basically the same DNA.
Favorite movie?
Favorite movie?
Or one you really like?
I'm a Marvel simp, so I'll just say just Marvel movies in general. I'm a bit of a basic boy when it comes to that, but I just really like superhero movies. That's been something that I've always liked since I was a kid.
Okay, who's your favorite Marvel hero?
Marvel hero? Doctor Strange, because magic stuff is freaking cool.
Nice. Very good.
I know, right?
I think you might have already given this one away, but favorite color?
Green and orange. I like. If you can't tell from the dungeon, it has a lot of those.
I'm glad you made something you like.
Exactly.
That's a happy.
It is a very happy.
What do you draw from most when you build?
So, like, typically when I'm starting a build, I'll have an idea. I'll think of, okay, I want to make an ice tower, or I want to make like an ancient tomb or something like that. And I end up browsing like online for concept art that other people have made, and I just sort of take aspects of that art and use that to design a vista for stuff here. Like one of my recent ones, I used a lot of Tomb Raider inspiration. They have a lot of things there that I've really liked using. Because I honestly, I just like the sort of ancient look a lot of these areas give. Or Uncharted is another one that I really liked. You can use a lot of the vistas they bring up there for inspiration. I don't know if I got sidetracked there at all.
No, that's exactly what I was wondering. So a lot of video games, a lot of real life examples, if you're looking on Google Images?
It depends. Like, the things I really like to build are just sort of crazy terrain formations. Like, I think some of the ones that have stood out to me, there's like some mountain region in China that I forget what it's called, but it has like a bunch of these rocky spires that I really liked. Or there's a bunch of national parks in Utah. I think it's like called Bryce Canyon, that has a lot of these cool landforms that I really enjoyed looking at when designing certain things.
Cool. Do you have any tips on someone who's interested in building in Minecraft? About tools or techniques or strategies, anything?
I definitely think the first thing you want to learn is how to use like the basics of a tool. because I think what's really been like what's defined my skill as I've gotten better at building has just been my knowledge of the tools. I like MC Edit used to be the big thing. Learning how to use that efficiently definitely made my mapping experience a lot better and easier because you learn how to block things out. You start with a thing, sculpt it into something you want based on like that image you have in your mind. As Monumenta's happened, we can't really use MC Edit too much here.
Yeah.
I don't think we use it at all anymore, or haven't for a very long time. And now I've learned how to use World Edit and Voxel Sniper a lot more. I've been using the command suite for plugins like stuff like Fast Sync World Edit, Voxel Sniper, a few plugins for like warping around and stuff for my own personal map projects for a long time as well. I used to make a little server that would just get distributed out. I don't think I was the first one to do that, and I know people like 14er have expanded and like perfected that kind of thing over the years. So yeah, and I would say just know your tools and know some basic ideas before you get into building, and then like of what you want to make mostly. I think that basically sums up like my tips there. A lot of it is just like learning how to make gameplay areas not suck to walk through. Because one of the problems I ran into when I was designing a lot of my solo maps, I would end up making these giant areas, or like these areas that were very open. They had a lot of some of them had a lot of detail. They had like a cool scale screenshot quality to them, but they would ultimately suck to walk through because they either took too long, they ended up being too samey, or the gameplay was basically copy pasted everywhere. And I realized that doing that kind of thing is not what people really enjoy playing. What people enjoy playing is seeing a lot of variety in what they're doing, incorporated with those giant vistas. Like, I don't really think any of my builds in here portray that very well. I think the orange
the good
itself.
Or the bad?
The good. I think it's this one dungeon keeps the good because this one has a lot of variety to it. But one of my areas, I think Pink from Chimerian Memories 4 is a huge area. I think it looks pretty cool still, but it's basically 4 hours of just walking up to a spawner, breaking it, with no real mechanics or interesting environmental threats in between. I think environmental threats are something I want to focus more on as we go into future content, because
how are those
if you reach the
traps? Like,
traps are included in those, I think.
Sure.
Just lava pits, or just pits that when you fall into them, you're probably gonna not have a good time. Like, obviously we've incorporated a bunch of those, but I want to even like focus on that even more, making that stuff like the overworld continuously more difficult as you explore, rather than just focusing all the difficulty into mob stats. But that's something that the actual mob devs will probably have more of an input in, beyond like me just putting in a few crevices or things that might hurt you. That kind of deal.
Makes sense. What is something interesting about you that no one would ever think to ask?
I honestly don't really have an answer to that. People have asked me that for a while, but I don't really consider much of myself too terribly interesting. Beyond like what I've done here in CTMC, beyond the stuff I've done in CTMC. Like, I take a lot of pride with some real life friends about like Monumenta as a project, and that's sort of like the interesting thing. But I can't really think of much beyond that.
Well, all right then. So, do many people in your real life?
A few, yeah.
Nice.
I brought a few of my real life friends around here. Not many of them are super interested in like Minecraft as a whole, but they appreciated what we made here. And, like,
oh, that's good.
Right. You know, some people just Monumenta isn't their thing, and that's perfectly fine. And maybe I'll get them to come around eventually. You know?
Well, that's cool. What is a question? Well, let's do like a wild card with bingo, the middle tile. What's a question that you wish I had asked? You get one. Something that I didn't think of. What do you want to tell me?
There's a lot of things I want to tell, but they're all spoilers, so it's hard to say.
Well, best not then. They'll find out eventually.
Eventually, one day.
Well, do you have anything else that you want to add?
No, thank you very much, Ari.
Thank you for playing with me. This is fun. I love your dungeon still.
Yeah, dude. I still have a soft spot in this place for me. Orange has a soft spot in my heart.
Same
somewhere
here.
In there.
Lots of happy memories. Starting off in alpha. Well, thank you so much for talking with us. Patrons, thank you for picking him and for asking questions. And we hope you all enjoy this. Y'all have a great day. Thank you for watching. Chip, say bye.
Bye! I said it too quiet.